Hi, I'm Bruce Gruget, and I'm here to present a survey of crowdsourcing. So the word crowdsourcing was coined back in 1995 by two editors at Wired magazine. It gained a lot of popularity in 2004 with this James Surowiecki book, The Wisdom of Crowds. So crowdsourcing is defined as the practice of obtaining needed services, ideas, or content by soliciting contributions from a large group of people, especially from the online community, rather than from traditional employees or sponsors. So I'm sorry to read that to you. But basically it's saying, rather than have your employees do something for you, you put out a call to the public and solicit their input, their knowledge and expertise. So I'm going to talk about five different types of crowdsourcing here. One where the crowd directly contributes their knowledge to something, the crowd bidding on and performing small tasks, prizes for innovation, crowdfunding, and prediction markets. So probably the most famous instance of crowdsourcing is Wikipedia. And this is where the crowd directly contributes what they know to the project. So Wikipedia was started in 2001 when they took an out-of-copyright encyclopedia, I think the 1912 version of Encyclopedia Britannica, and put it online. And then they solicited the public's help in adding new articles, editing things. And you can see the number of articles in the English version has grown to over 4.5 million today. So this is very successful. I think we've all used Wikipedia. It's been a great success. It's not without problems, though. So I don't expect you to read this, but this is an outline of the problems with Wikipedia, according to Wikipedia. And what I found interesting is, so I expected I know what the problems are, right? That there are these people with a point of view that's different, and they'll go and vandalize sites they don't agree with and things like that. And that's not really the serious problem. They know how to deal with it. The more serious problem is the editorial process. So they've developed sort of a hive mind, hostile culture among the editors of Wikipedia, and it's driven away some of their editors, and it's made it more difficult for them to recruit new people. So Wikipedia is actually suffering a bit now. So they're trying to address it. They're aware of this, and they're trying to address it. But it's not without problems. Another example that I really liked was Waze, and I say it in the past tense because maps have gotten much better, and they produce much of this function now. But this is a real good example of people just inputting things about traffic congestion, accidents, where the police were, and helping other people avoid delays. But it's kind of gone away with maps having a lot of data. Now this is interesting. So this is an example of the crowd bidding on and performing small tasks. So this is Amazon Mechanical Turk. I don't know if you've heard of this. I love this subtitle here. So this is artificial intelligence, and this is a real thing. It's a marketplace where if you have a task, you can post it up here. Workers will select tasks and perform it, and they get paid. It's amazing how little they get paid, though. So I've seen tasks up there for a half an hour duration, pay us 6 cents. Not $6, it's 6 cents. So this is, you might think this is a strange name for something, Mechanical Turk. What the heck are they talking about? This is the original Mechanical Turk here. Actually, it's a replica of the original, but this was a sensation in the 19th century. So they would take this contraption around to exhibitions, and this mechanical guy would play chess with people who came up, and he was actually a pretty good chess player. He won quite a lot of time. It eventually was exposed as a fake, that there was actually a guy inside the box there who was doing the playing chess. But for a while, Mechanical Turk was quite famous. So you could see what, artificial intelligence, right? It looks like it could be done by a machine, but actually it's a person doing the work. So a different type of work for money are prizes for innovation. Now this is probably the most famous one of these. Probably most people have heard of the Longitude Act of 1714. So this is, British Parliament actually passed an act that said that they would award £20,000 to someone who could determine the longitude of a ship at sea. So this is a big problem. Now, most people don't know that this prize was never actually awarded. The man who came closest to getting an award was this man, John Harrison. So he produced this clock. This is the actual clock. It's in a museum in Greenwich now. And the committee set up to administer the prize, put this on a ship, gave it a trial, and they said it wasn't quite good enough. So they paid him £250 for this first clock, his H1 clock. And then they gave him an additional £250 to improve it. He eventually produced 4 different clocks and felt that he deserved to win the prize, but the prize was not awarded because there was a competing approach, which was to determine the position of the moon against the stars. And that's a very tough problem, because if you think of it, the motion of the moon with respect to the stars is actually very complicated, right? It's kind of doing curlicues as it moves around the sun. And you'd have to come up with charts, that you put on the ship and show where the moon is and where the stars. So it was a big deal. But anyway, by 1760, the moon charting method was pretty far along, and the clock method was pretty far along too. So the committee decided that no one has won the prize, and ships will determine their longitude by a combination of clocks and charts of the moon. Here's a more recent example. I guess I wanted to mention about Longitude Prize. If you look up Longitude Prize now, there's currently one being offered. There's a fund of £10 million being offered to anyone who can come up with a way of treating diseases without using antibiotics. So, obviously has nothing to do with longitude, but named after the previous prize. This is the X Prize, or later called the Ansari XPrize. So this was a prize of $10 million offered to an organization that could put a manned spacecraft into space twice in 2 weeks. And this was achieved on October 4th, 2004, the 47th anniversary of Sputnik. Of course, they chose that date. By this thing here, Spaceship One. So this shows Spaceship One mated to its mother ship that they called the White Knight. And the way this worked is, the White Knight would lift it up to altitude, then Spaceship One detaches and fires its rocket and goes up into space. So this was designed by a guy named Burt Rutan, but it was funded by Paul Allen of Microsoft fame. And they say he put $25 million into developing this thing. So they spent $25 million to win a $10 million prize. So you can see that they weren't in it for the money, right? Spaceship One never flew again after achieving the feat, and it's not that it couldn't have, but they didn't want to damage it. They thought it was a historical thing, and it's now in the Smithsonian, so you can go see it if you like. A different kind of crowdsourcing is crowdfunding. I think most people are familiar with these two. GoFundMe is a site where you can ask for donations for any purpose, really. And I'm sure it's done a lot of good, and I'm also sure that there are a lot of scams out there. And Kickstarter is a similar thing, but it's for funding for creative projects. So it's kind of like a mini startup organization where they'll give you money. Often in Kickstarter, donors will receive something in return, a sample of the product or something like that. About 8% of the money funded here ends up going to fees and not to the user, which I thought was kind of interesting. So this is another class of things that I think is really very interesting: prediction markets. So it's a mechanism for collecting, a vast amount of information, right? Everything that's known about something, and reducing it down to one data point, right? Like one number, right? What are the odds of this happening? Well, let's make a prediction market, and you'll get a pretty good estimate. Some markets, as accurate as 90%. Some common types of prediction markets, sports betting, bookies. If you think about it, keeping book is just a prediction market on, who's going to win a sporting event. Political betting, which used to be all the rage in the US and now has died out because we're being more vigilant about gambling. But is still big in Europe, especially in Great Britain. And I didn't know about this, but many of the large corporations have conducted prediction markets internally to forecast things. So a sound economic basis here. So no less a person than Friedrich Hayek, the founder of the Austrian School of Economics, published this paper, The Use of Knowledge in Society in 1945, basically endorsing crowdsourcing and prediction markets in particular. And there's efficient market theory, which says that the market prices reflect all the relevant information. We usually think of that in terms of the stock market, but that applies equally well here. So sports betting, a little bit surprised here. So overall, bookmaker odds are about 70% correct. I would have guessed, a much higher number. It seems that bettors tend to overvalue long shots and undervalue favorites. But people looking for the big payout, I guess, as opposed to the boring small gains. Another interesting thing about this is that there's actually much less scholarly research in this area than you might think, right? I mean, bookies have been around since ancient times. But, anyway, that's that. Political betting. So this was big, right? In the U.S., it was all the rage, right? And the Financial Times here estimates that 50% of total campaign spend, would have been equivalent to what was bet on it in various betting markets. Not very much of this happens in the U.S. anymore. Offshore places still do a lot of business in political betting. And then private prediction markets. So, a lot of these companies and many others have set up prediction markets internally, probably using, not real money, but, some kind of play money and awarding a prize or something. But it's actually fairly commonly used to ask employees to contribute their wisdom to something the company's doing. Two very high-profile failures of the prediction market last year. They failed to predict Brexit or the Trump election. They were substantially wrong on both counts, and there's been a lot of hand-wringing since then about just why this is, and I won't go into that. So a problem with prediction markets in the U.S. is that it's viewed as gambling, and it's strictly illegal in most places, right? Some places where it's not illegal, there is NADEX, which is regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. So in Chicago, trading alongside pork bellies and soybeans are contracts on things like, what the jobs number next month is going to be, or what do you think the Fed is going to do with interest rates and things like that. Another market that kind of got, and it carved out an exception, I guess, to being illegal is the Iowa electronic market, where you can do political betting. This is run by the University of Iowa, and they limit your position to $500. So the combination of small positions and run by academics as a teaching tool gets them an exception. Probably the most common prediction market in the US is Predictit, which is actually based in New Zealand. And it is technically illegal, right, because it's online betting. But I guess there's been a declaration that, again, it's run by academics and they limit your position size. They're going to look that they weren't going to be prosecuted. And so, you can go and place a bet there. And then in addition to this, there's all kinds of stuff in Europe. So there are a lot of prediction markets on all kinds of things. So the takeaways from all of this, crowdsourcing can be a really useful thing. It's done a lot of good. But there are problems too, so don't just blindly believe everything you read. You've got to look to your methodology. If you want innovation, it looks like the way to go is to offer a large prize, not a small prize. But if you want something simple done, there's Mechanical Turk, and you can offer very low pay, as it turns out. And then I'd say that prediction markets are probably underutilized, especially in the US, because of our laws against gambling, which is a shame, right? They can be wonderful things. So that's the end. Are there any questions? Thank you.